So what does it mean to be content? Well, when we're looking at happiness, the word contentment is mentioned twice. A state of pleasurable contentment of mind, deep pleasure in or contentment in one's circumstances. Okay, so what does it mean to be content? Contentment, the state of being happy, satisfied, and experience of well-being. Okay, so now we're beginning to see a little bit of a thread that started off with an idea of happiness, but it's filtering through some ideas of satisfaction and well-being, all under the banner of contentment. So let's just take a moment and learn a little bit more about this idea of what it means to be content.
I don't think we have a great cultural idea of happiness. I think many people imagine that happiness comes from something external. If you get a new car, if you get a better job, a bigger house, you'll be happy. And I don't think that's great to depend on happiness on external things. Whenever I hear the phrase "the pursuit of happiness," the image that always comes to my mind is of racing dogs chasing a mechanical rabbit that's always just out of reach. I think a much better goal of life is to be content, and contentment is an inner feeling of satisfaction that's really not dependent on external factors. So in the book, I argue that really the goal of working toward optimal emotional health is to enhance contentment, comfort, serenity, and resilience, so that you can roll with the ups and downs of life and not get thrown off too much. And I think it is not realistic to try to be happy all the time. We're supposed to be sad or blue some of the time. You're not supposed to get stuck there. But I think that's part of human experience.
Okay, so some thoughts there on happiness versus contentment. And it's important to recognize that contentment rather than happiness can offer a more sustainable and fulfill approach to life. So there are various benefits that were mentioned there. So contentment is often rooted in acceptance and gratitude for what one has in the present moment. Again, the idea of being present, whereas happiness can be more fleeting, can be temporary by definition, and dependent on external circumstances. So the idea of happiness is dependent on things that are external and out of our control. Contentment is about finding that inner peace, leading to a more stable emotional state. It can provide a foundation for resilience in the face of adversity, because rather than being derailed by setbacks or challenges, individuals who prioritize their contentment are better equipped when life throws us that rough hand, when life deals us a bum note. We've got that contentment and awareness in order to better deal with those scenarios. Now, the idea of happiness is often linked to comparison with others and societal standards of what success looks like. And we see this all the time with reference to social media and the, the portrayal of the perfect life on social media, which can lead us to feel inadequate or sometimes envious, sometimes that we're not keeping up, that we're falling behind, that idea of somehow we're failing. Contentment involves accepting our circumstances without comparison and fosters a much healthier sense of self-worth and self-compassion. It gives us the ability to be kinder to ourselves, which is really, really important. Contentment often involves cultivating a sense of gratitude for the present moment, being thankful and being mindful of where you are in your life. Practicing gratitude has been linked by having loads of psychological and physical benefits, including mood, better relationships, and better overall health. So, in summary, whilst happiness is certainly a noteworthy and admirable pursuit, maybe it's not realistic. Yeah? There will be times when we are happy, but there will also be times when we are not happy. So, seeking contentment offers a much more sustainable approach to life that can lead to a greater overall satisfaction and well-being. So, using that as our framework, let's move on slightly. So, can this feeling be measured? Well, yes, apparently it can. The World Happiness Report was released only last month in February 2024. Sponsored by the UN, it uses a number of metrics to measure all aspects of contentment, well-being, and yes, happiness as well. But crucially, it involves it identifies barriers and blockers to those that prevent us from achieving those states. So just by way of quick reference, the World Happiness Report does have input across the world, and noteworthy to say that the UK has dropped 2 places compared to last year. So we only just make it into the world's top 20 happiest countries to live in. So what's going on? What's all this about? What's preventing us from getting that contentment, that happiness, that well-being? Well, when we have a look at the state of the nation, there are some key statistics that jump out. Less than 1 in 10 people in the UK population reported high levels of happiness yesterday. But that's okay. Now we know what we know about happiness, that it's temporary by nature and is dependent and exposed to external factors. So perhaps 10% of people that experienced high levels of happiness yesterday is to be expected. Some people have rough days, some people are dealing with difficult times. So 10%, that sounds okay to me. 3 in 10 people reported very low levels of happiness yesterday. But similarly, 30% of people that may be exposed to external factors that have left them feeling very low on any one given day. So, with exposure to those external events, those stresses, those life events, maybe that is to be expected too. 4 in 10 people reported low levels of happiness yesterday. So this is where it gets a little bit more of a concern, perhaps. That makes 7 in 10, 70% of the UK population reported low or very low rates of happiness on any one given day. So that is significant. So again, what is going on? How are these metrics measured, and what are the barriers? What are the problems that people are experiencing that is preventing them from finding this inner peace that was spoken about? And what can we do about it? Crucially, what can we do about it? So the Office for National Statistics contributed to this report with their measures of national well-being, which uses 10 metrics to check on the well-being of the nation. So it talks about personal well-being, which looks at things like your life satisfaction. How worthwhile do you feel? Your hopes for the future, and do you feel that you're being treated fairly? It looks at where we live and the environments in which we are brought up. It looks at our relationships, both personal relationships, but within our social circle as well. It references our health and what we do. How do we live our lives? What do we do with our spare time? How do we fill our day? We have to address the issue as the contributor from the social media did about finance and the economy. How does that impact what we are able to do and access? And it looks at our education and skills, the governance of the country, and the state of the environment. So some of the key findings that play into the fact that 70% of the UK population identify themselves as low or very low when it comes to happiness, well-being, and contentment. Only 67% of the population feel hopeful about their future. There are huge regional variations cited in the report, so the opportunities that exist for people are different depending on where they live, which is something that we have to factor into our discussion. 1 in 15 adults feels lonely, often or always. Now, that is a shocking statistic. That is something that we would absolutely seek to challenge in our social circles, but also think about what we could do in the workplace to help those 1 in 15 adults, because nobody should be feeling lonely. 15% of people in the UK said that they had nobody to rely on in the time of a health crisis. Only 36% of people gave unpaid time to community groups or clubs. Again, we know how important it is to give back, to contribute, to volunteer, and we know how that can sustain well-being and make you feel better yourself, but only 36% of the UK population have dedicated any time to do that. So again, is that something that presents something of an opportunity? 20% of people said they found it very difficult to manage financially last month. So 1 in 5. Now, this is nothing new. We know that we're in a very difficult cost of living period. 20% of people finding it very difficult to manage financially in any given month. Less than half the UK population are satisfied with their current educational level. And 7 in 10 people feel that they have no voice they don't feel acknowledged. They feel that their opinions don't count. Less than 20% have trust that what they want actually matters to the government. So what exists within this list? Okay, I'm seeing themes of loneliness. That's definitely something that we can combat in our workplaces up and down the country. Who would you reach to in support in time of crisis? Again, opportunity there to make sure that we can put some real good best practice in so that nobody feels that they are alone when they need to reach out for support during a health crisis. We're seeing things of unfulfilled potential, people feeling that they're able to offer more with their educational levels not being fulfilled, feeling of lack of purpose, a lack of value. So, what can we do about it? That is the challenge. And there are things that we can do, and these things will positively impact our health, happiness, and well being. Think about our self care. There are really good examples up and down the country that we've experienced of organizations offering well-being walks, well-being cafes, dinner time strolls, lunch breaks outside, book clubs, social events. They could all be organized through our workplaces. Is there an opportunity to explore the community? This is becoming more common with corporate social responsibility, but what does your organization give back to the local community? Things like litter picks, school visits, support with charities on your doorstep. Explore the communities where you are and give something back because that is a critical part. Giving something back is a real critical part of sustaining our our wellness. When it comes to relationships, social health and connection, they're really important. Reach out to that person that you haven't seen for a while. Establish those connections. We often talk about mental health and we often talk about physical health. But something that we do commonly overlook is the importance of social health. We know that social connection is a real good defense in the battle against mental ill health and depression and anxiety. So let's make sure that we can do everything we can to establish really good social health links as well. When we talk about health, we do a lot of work with organizations where we try to increase the health literacy. Okay, so if we can upskill the guys in your workplace to understand what it means to be well, look out for the risks, the signs, the symptoms of any potential life limiting conditions, then let's do that. In our course, the 4Bs, we look at the five biggest preventable killers of working age men. And you would be surprised at the lack of health awareness that exists out there. So let's do what we can to increase health literacy amongst our friends, our peers, and our workforces so that we can better empower people to look after their own wellness. Giving something back is something that we've talked about um, already. Explore the community behind around you and see if there's anything that you can dedicate to the community around you. And remember that your job does not define you. We know that we are proud of our jobs, we value our position in the workforce. But think more broadly than that. Think about your role as a father, as a mother, as a auntie, as an uncle. Think about your role as a friend, as a colleague. You wear many hats throughout the day, and your job is only just one of them. So think about your work-life balance. Think about the value of money versus time, okay, and make sure that you are dedicating some time to yourself outside of work because that will sustain you in the long term to be much healthier and much more productive. Learn a new skill, a new hobby. Let's fulfill that potential. Let's look at what we can do either internally or externally. Are there opportunities to further your career with additional CPD based courses, or is there a hobby that you've been putting off and something that could stimulate you outside of work? Could you do it as a group? Could you get together and cooking, musical instruments, something that feeds your self-expression? Okay, really important to factor those things into your overall idea of happiness. And the last ideas are all around understanding your place in the world. Your voice does matter. You do matter. You do have something to say. try and be present and appreciate your surroundings. Okay, so when we're doing this, it will take time and effort. But remember, self-care is not selfish. It's a really important element of your overall well-being and overall quality of life. And it will see those moments of happiness, those fleeting moments of happiness that we talked about before, more regular and last longer. So try and think outside the box and adopt some self-care activities into your regular routine.